Now, the property pages in our newspapers are getting thicker and thicker. You might have noticed once more. But fears of another property bubble began rumbling again this week when the government announced proposals to regenerate the construction industry. At the same time, we're hearing news of a rental crisis, and homelessness is becoming a bigger issue for this country on a daily basis. There are 184 families in Dublin living in hotels. To talk about this and lots more, would you welcome, please, David McWilliams, ladies and gentlemen.
What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel, got to go round. Ride a painted pony, let the spinning wheel spin.
All right. You have a kind of Cassandra-like role in Irish economics. You warn, we don't listen, and it happens. So talk to me about the bubble, because there's so much talk of it.
Yeah.
And then there's fact and there's fiction. Is there a bubble?
I think what happens in all these things, these bubbles, is that they start and everyone thinks this is okay, it's supply and demand, this is normal. But they're like kind of forest fires, that if you don't put out what we're seeing, certainly in Dublin, and we may see in the rest of the country, if you don't put it out at the very beginning, what you get is this begins to engulf the entire economy. And what you see is homelessness at one end, first-time buyers being priced out of the market, people in negative equity who are hoping that their house prices will go up. Their house prices aren't going up because where the prices are going up are in different areas. And ultimately, you've got to act very, very quickly. The thing about economics is if you wait and wait and wait, then the problem gets worse and worse and worse, and the solutions become much more radical.
So a lot of people were waiting for a long time, or hanging in there. Either is it time to buy a house for the first time? Is it time to trade up, or indeed trade down? The point being, when are we going to get optimum value? And there was so much talk for a long time, Dave, this thing going to bottom out. You believe it's bottomed?
Absolutely. I think
on the banks.
Prices in Dublin have gone up by nearly 20% this year. That is
enormous, really.
Enormous. And if you think that's 10 times more than the average wage. So you're back into bubble territory. And you did speak about property prices in terms of newspapers. You know, anecdotally, I know if you sit in the back of a cab, for the last 6 years, taxi drivers said, yeah, hi, how's it going? Now, the last couple of months, it's, okay, what's happening? They're talking to me, they're saying, do you think it's a bubble? Should I buy? I'm trying to buy. I don't have the cash. I was looking for something last year. It was affordable. Now it's gone up by 40 grand. What should I do? So what happens is houses in Ireland are more around about psychology than economics. And this is a crucial thing. And the government always talks about economics when it comes to house prices. But we know that Irish people have a strange relationship with houses. So for example, in the last couple of days, you see the state saying, well, if prices are rising, what will happen is demand will fall. And if prices are rising, builders will build more houses. So the market will fix it. But we know in Ireland the market never fixes houses. In actual fact, the last time we were here, we allowed the market to do something and we ended up with a total catastrophe.
Okay, so Construction 2020 in the news this week. This is this idea that they're going to try and re-energise the property market. Now, are you suggesting that the last time government tried to get involved in the property market, it didn't work, it ended in tears?
I'll tell you what I'm suggesting. It's something very odd, right? Where economics says when the price rises, the demand will actually go down. That doesn't happen. In actual fact, the opposite happens in Ireland. When the price of houses rise, as they've done in Dublin, people panic. So the very people said, oh my God, I'm going to wait. And they said, no, I'm not going to wait. I'm actually going to try now and bid. So when prices rise, demand doesn't fall, it actually rises. And on the other hand, Ryan, what happens is when prices rise, people who were going to sell say, okay, I was going to sell my house. And then they say, well, prices rose by 18%. I'd be mad to sell now because they might rise by 18% next year. So rather than selling, they stop and they say we could make more money by selling next year. So something very odd happens. When prices rise, as they have done in Dublin, demand doesn't go down, it goes up. And supply doesn't go up, it goes down. And that creates the panic on the part of people. Now, I can understand why the government wants to get the construction industry. Its objective is to try and get the construction industry back to 60,000 jobs.
And how do they propose that?
Well, it's very interesting if you actually read the document.
Tell us a bit about it.
If you read the document, it's very, very big.
But
what it is there's loads of talk about consultations and strategy reviews and technical groups. There's actually no initiatives. The one initiative which they spoke about is what was introduced in the UK last year, which is a thing called Help to Buy.
Yes, we remember.
What this is for first-time buyers, this is the government will insure a certain amount of your mortgage. And the idea there is that first-time buyers who couldn't get mortgages today will be able to go into the bank and say, I have only 5% or 10% deposit, but the government is going to underwrite. Now, what has actually happened in Britain is this has driven the price of property in London right through the roof. So it strikes me that if you were worried about a bubble, and if you were worried about house prices, and I know many people are,
Yes.
you'd be increasingly more worried today after that announcement. Because what happens again is the reason house prices rise is banks lend money to people.
Yeah.
So the more money banks are lending, they have a huge interest in lending. The estate agents have a huge interest in the whole thing going. The government wants tax revenue from a buoyant housing market. There's an enormous interest, vested interest in getting this going. If you subsidise the banks, if you encourage them to lend yet more, what you're going to get is this panic we spoke about. Prices go a wee bit higher, people panic a little bit more, and ultimately what you find is that the government solution, which I think is probably a good idea, what it's going to do is it's going to actually force prices up. And we saw from the last escapade, from the period 2000 to 2008,
Yeah.
supply, i.e. builders, people building houses, does respond, but very, very slowly.
Yeah.
So rather than, what we need now is houses built immediately in certain areas.
Is that going to happen?
In the next, well, it could happen. There
Could
are
it?
solutions. If you look around the world, there's all sorts of solutions that could be put in place. For example, if you look at, in Dublin, in the M50, even within the M50,
Yeah.
there's a huge amount of idle industrial land. The question is, can you not rezone this for residential? But most importantly, what happens if you rezone it for residential, a developer will say, well, hold on a second, prices are rising. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait. I've got my residential stuff rezoned.
Yes.
I'm going to wait a couple of years, prices go up and up and up, and I'm going to make even more money. So what the Americans do in lots of industries is they issue licenses like rezoning, and they say, use it or lose it.
Great.
Right. So you got 2 years
It's
to
a
use
finite
it. Yeah,
limit
you got
on
2
your
years,
thing.
start building, or else you lose it. So the developer then says to himself, hold on a second, I've got to start now. And suddenly you see supply
Look at
coming on
the
stream.
numbers, David. 2006, peak of the housing bubble, there were 93,000 housing units built.
Yeah.
93,000. Last year, 8,000.
Yes.
It's a phenomenal.
It's a phenomenal change. And what it shows you is that we can never risk this again.
Yeah.
What this says to me is, we know how this story ends. This country has been down this road before. We know what happens is, at the very end of a cycle, builders build far too many houses. Banks lend far too much money.
When it's too
People
late.
don't want it when it's too late.
Yeah.
So the question is now, you've got to nip it in the bud right now. And the interesting thing is, we have the opportunity in Ireland to do the right thing. You know, this is not that difficult.
Okay, let's talk.
Lots of countries have done this in the past. Do it right now, and then we save ourselves all the hassle in a few years' time.
Let's talk to Ricky. Is in the audience. Ricky, how are you?
Hi, Ryan.
You're here with Annette. You're married?
No, we're not married, no.
Not yet. Oh, but you're first-time buyers. You're in the market.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your circumstances. You're renting currently?
Yes, we're renting currently. We've been looking now since about last August, September. What we've seen is that prices have rose significantly in that time. We probably feel that we just barely missed the boat. So if we had started looking, I'd say even 3 or 6 months earlier, I think we would have been in a better position. But what we've seen is that supply really isn't there. It has picked up a little bit this year, but now the prices have jumped very significantly. So we're now in a situation where we don't want to panic, but we also don't want to kind of miss out. So we're trying to find the right house at the right price. So it's very difficult.
Can you give us a ballpark
Sure.
of the house price you're looking for?
Yeah, so I guess 300,000, 350,000.
Okay. And do you have like a number of bedrooms you'd like ideally?
3 to 4 bedrooms would be ideal, yeah.
And an area, geographical area?
Yeah, we're looking mainly around Glasnevin, Phibsborough. We looked in Stony Batter, so all kind of north Dublin.
So this time, say last year, for that, you may have got a house for roughly how much in that area?
I would say, so there's one particular estate, I can give an example. So houses were selling always below 300,000, so probably 275, 290 around that price bracket. And if you were to go and look
for one of those houses today?
There was a house that went sale agreed in that area for 426,000 last week, so...
Good Lord, okay. So when you're going out, and this is you, like so many other people watching this show tonight, are heading out tomorrow to go and look at the houses around different estates around the country, looking to buy the dream. Yeah. When you're going out there, are you constantly met by a fight, a struggle to look at a house? Is the competition enormous?
I can give a couple of examples.
Please do,
yeah. So a house maybe 3 or 4 months ago, the viewing was at Tuesday evening, 4 p.m, 4:30 p.m. And it was like a funeral outside. There was literally, you had to form a queue to get in. There was a queue on the way in, a queue on the way out. We bid on that house. Ultimately, I think it was actually taken off the market in the end, but the price was 100,000 more than the asking price. Even just last weekend, a house just off the Navan Road, if I can name areas, and it was, I think 340 was the asking. And again, I think the estate agent said they had 50 brochures, and when we arrived, they're all gone. And we weren't the last people to come, so there was actually a traffic jam. Someone had to direct traffic outside. People were abandoning cars. It was just crazy. This
reminds me of a time not so long ago. I remember. I'll talk to David about that in a second. But I do want to ask you, if I may, Ricky, about this the 2020 scheme and what the Minister for Finance was talking about. You're laughing already. I don't have a good feeling about this answer.
Baffling, yeah. I can understand the basic supply-demand. If you increase the demand, supply may go up, but it just doesn't work. I think David already probably described it very well. It just doesn't work. It makes no sense. All it's going to do is put more easy credit out there. People will have more money to spend on all the same houses. There won't be any more houses, just more people with more money trying to buy the same houses, and inevitably prices will go up. So
how are you feeling about your chances of getting a house?
We're still optimistic. We're still hanging in there, but what we're trying not to do is put up on one house, pay too much for it. Because, we've been looking a long time now, and we do want to get the right house, but we don't want to overpay either. We don't want to be part of the bubble or part of the panic that seems to be rising at the moment.
Well, thank you for... I mean, that's an extraordinary story, really, isn't it?
It's interesting what Ricky's talking about. There's two things going on. The first thing is the way in which every time somebody buys a house, it actually throws down the gauntlet for somebody else to get involved. Okay, it's a very strange thing, but it always happens in housing markets all over the world. It's a bit like going to a football match.
Yes.
And let's say you're all sitting down, let's go to the Aviva. You watched Liverpool against Rovers last week.
Yeah.
And everyone's sitting down, and then the guy in front of you stands up. So you have to stand up. But by you standing up, you don't realise that the guy behind you has to stand up too, and he stands up. And then the girl behind him has to stand up, and the girl behind him. And suddenly we're all standing when we could have been sitting. And that's exactly how the economy works. So Ricky's going in to look in Glasnevin.
Yeah.
And what has happened is somebody else is thinking, okay, so they're there. Even that Ricky and Annette don't know this, they are sending a signal to the next guy to go down and bid.
Yeah.
And the second part of it, so that's the kind of herd behaviour, and that happens all the time.
Like the crucible.
And that happened all the way through the boom in Ireland. It's exactly the same. The second thing is we have a new character called the cash buyer. And the cash buyer is something we didn't have in the last boom. And the cash buyer is somebody who has savings, a lot of savings, and over the last 5 or 6 years has seen those savings, put them in the bank, particularly in the crisis. So I want them in the bank. And then the rate of interest kept falling and falling and falling on the savings. So eventually the rate of interest has almost gone to zeros. So that person says, what's the use of me keeping my money on deposit?
Start spending.
I'm going to go into the housing market. So Annette and Ricky are not only elbowing people of their own generation, it's people of a different generation coming in. The cash buyer, because he or she doesn't have to borrow, they will always be able to outbid the first-time buyer.
It's a very kind of hopeless scenario, but
it's not hopeless.
We'll hopefully...
It's not hopeless.
Okay, well, we will get to the hopeful bit towards the end of this conversation. I hope for you guys particularly, and people like you. The rental situation is equally in crisis. I think it's fair to say. Average monthly rent in Dublin increasing by €225 since 2011, and nationally about €100. In the audience is Tamara Kearns. Where are you, Tamara? Thanks for coming to join us this evening. You're with a homeless unit.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your circumstances?
We're living in a homeless unit in Crumlin. Now, luckily enough, we have a 2-bedroom apartment there, unlike some who are living in hotels. We've been there since October.
Who's there with you tomorrow?
My husband and my 2 kids.
And how old are the kids?
My eldest is 6 and my little boy is 2 in July.
And up until recently, you had a house you were renting, is that right?
Yeah, we did.
And why did you stop? How did you end up not being in that house anymore?
We just fell behind on the rent. He was losing out on hours in work and we fell behind on the rent. We had tried to come to some sort of agreement, and luckily enough, we were lucky with the landlord that we had. It's just obviously landlords want their rent paid, and we couldn't pay it.
Okay,
so
and can I ask you what your monthly rent was?
it was $1,000 a month.
And was there a proposal to increase that as well?
Not for us, but I'd say it went up after that.
That's since then.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you suddenly find yourself just utterly unable to pay, what happens to you and your family the day the landlord says, "I'm sorry, I don't like doing this to you, but the fact is I have to keep going and you're going to have to go somewhere else"? Where do you go?
There's nowhere really for you to go. There is no in between for looking at being homeless. You're either homeless or you're not.
So where did you end up?
I went on to all the agencies that I possibly could.
Yeah.
And I was just every time told you have to be homeless. To get this help. There wasn't anything out there to stop this from happening.
Yeah.
So it ended up the day that we became homeless, we went into the homeless unit and declared ourselves homeless.
Did you ever were you one of the people or families that end up in hotels at all?
We were, yeah. We were up at the airport and we spent 2 weeks in the Bewleys up there.
And is that a state
that was
funded?
Up at it was.
They put you there?
Yeah.
Okay, for 2 weeks in a hotel?
2 weeks in a family room.
Okay, and is that any way to live at all? I mean, did you find that?
No, anyone that's been on holidays and had to spend more than a couple of hours in a room with your kids, it's kind of 2 weeks is just way too much.
You're a very honest mother to say that, and I do understand where you're coming from.
I love my kids,
but not to be facetious about you. I mean, you still life has to go on. You've got to go to, I presume, your school and school.
Of course, yeah, it's no holiday.
Exactly.
We had to go. Hotel, which is for anyone that doesn't know, it's at the end of the M50.
Yeah.
And we had to go from there to the north side, Finglas, every morning for school. So I had a 40-minute walk from there and then straight onto the bus and in there. My husband then was working nights, so he had to cycle across the city every night, 6 p.m. till 3 in the morning. We then basically, we ended up getting out of there and luckily enough put into the 2-bedroom apartment. But we're living with people who have conditions that we basically don't have. My kids are asking questions about what's going on next door when they're screaming and shouting, and it's really not ideal for kids.
Okay, school-wise?
School-wise, I've had to change my daughter Stacey's school. We were getting two buses across the city every morning from Crumlin to get into Finglas. I was leaving at about 7:30 every morning, and she was missing out on days because we just couldn't afford it. Like the bus fares and everything has gone up, so we were just at this change where we had to move her.
Can you come and go as you please in the homeless unit?
Well, we have a curfew.
A curfew.
A curfew.
At what time is the curfew?
11. I'm probably home.
What do you mean? You can't come and go after 11?
No. We have to be home by 11. We have to sign in. And basically, we're not allowed visitors. That's another rule. So I can't even have my family come with me. There's no visitors allowed whatsoever.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like a prisoner. I'm a married woman. I have 2 kids, and I have to answer to someone. Yeah. I can't just. We have no social life. We can't stay out. What kind of a life is that for someone to have? My husband's a working man as well, and when he was working nights, I had to go down and let him in every night because it's a secure building. You have to buzz in, and we're lucky we have our own door. Really.
Where to next tomorrow? What's the plan?
Unfortunately, we've fallen into the gap where he works, so we're not entitled to rental allowance, and there's nothing really out there for us. We've been priced out of the market. We can't get a mortgage because he's on too low an income.
Yeah.
And I don't really know at the moment. We're trying with the Anti-Austerity Alliance, and myself and a couple of others are organising a campaign on the housing situation. And we're trying our best now to get it noticed that if you are facing homelessness, if you are living in homeless accommodation, there is nothing wrong with that. Homelessness has such a taboo around it. It is not the old homeless anymore. We have a new type of homelessness, and it's families.
And you summed that up. I think Margaret is with us as well, Margaret Stapleton. How are you, Margaret?
Grand, thanks.
Can you tell us a little bit about your situation? Up until recently you were renting, were you?
Yeah, I was renting in Dublin 15, and my landlord, he put the house up for sale. And like Tamara, I fell behind in rent as well. Okay. Because it was so expensive. So when he sold the house, I couldn't go anywhere to even rent because the house, like the prices is just madness in Blanchardstown and Dublin 15. And not only that, then they won't accept rent allowance. So I was going down to my local authority and they wouldn't do anything till I was homeless. Yeah. And then when I was homeless, they expect you to go down. We are suitcases, your whole life basically. We are kids, you know, they have no empathy. They just want you to to place yourself there with your whole life. And
where did you end up then after?
They placed me down the North Circular Road.
Did you stay in a hotel as well, or were you?
I was in a hotel.
For how long?
I was there for a week and 2 days.
And how many children have you got, Margaret?
I've got 3 kids, Ryan.
And can you tell me how old they are?
Yeah, they're 6, 4 and 10 months old.
How do you, I mean, we were chatting to Tamara about the idea of staying in a hotel room, and people might say, well, you know, at least it could be worse things in a hotel room, but you're there, you're on your own?
I'm on my own,
With the 3 kids?
Yeah.
Okay, and what is that like as an existence?
Well, like for the first few days, like the kids are really excited and everything's grand. But it's not life, you have nowhere to cook. You've got to depend on family members to help you out. You've got to eat out and it's so expensive and it's not a life.
So where are you now?
I'm down the North Circular Road now at the moment.
In what sort of accommodation?
I can't even describe it. To be honest, it's just like when I first went in there 4 weeks ago, the whole building was derelict. Like I'm walking in on my own with 3 kids and they just place you in this room. And I have to just say, Ryan, the staff down there have been absolutely amazing. Only for them, I don't even know where I'd be because they have literally been counselling me every single night to make me feel safe.
But I'm trying to get a handle, Margaret, on the nature of the place. It's a building? It's like a house, is it?
It's like the old type building down the north. You've got all bedrooms and you've got different families. There's loads of families down there. I can't even tell you how many families there's. Yeah. And they've got their own way of living and I'm after coming from my own way of life, like where I've had my own routines and it's
how many bedrooms in this place for you?
Well, I just got a bedroom with me and the 3 kids.
All in the same room?
Yeah.
And kitchen facilities of your own?
Yeah, you've got the shared kitchens.
Share kitchen?
Yeah.
Living area?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't.
It's what effect is this having on your little ones?
Well, the kids is like waking up, having extreme nightmares. And I actually only met Enda Kenny there on Tuesday. He was on my mother's estate. I chased after him with my baby in my arms.
What did you say to him?
It was absolutely humiliating. But I chased after him and I said, Taoiseach, I'm begging you, help us. Because they don't realise what it's all about, Ryan. And he told me that I'd be waiting 18 months to 2 years to be housed.
What did you say to him when you said that?
I said, come down now tonight, Enda, and have a look where I'm living. Have a look where I'm staying. And have a look at how my kids' mental health is. They're missing school. They're falling asleep. And I've got to go up to school every day and explain to a teacher what the situation is, that I'm homeless. And it's humiliating and it's degrading. And the politicians, they do not give a damn. All they're concerned about is votes. And it's disgusting. It is, it's totally disgusting.
I mean, I just need to go. I'll come back, David. Thank you, by the way. Mike Allen is with Director of Advocacy, Focus Ireland. This sounds like Sean O'Casey stuff. I mean, it's tenement country.
Definitely.
In 2014.
That's exactly what it is,
Ryan.
Is it? Yeah. It's like Angela's ashes. I'm telling you now, it's unreal.
Mike, how did we get to this?
I don't think you can really follow the eloquence of Tamara and Margaret. It's just very hard to. Focus Ireland is the homeless organisation working to try and pick up the pieces of this in Dublin. And just to get a picture of that, when we started doing this sort of work directly with the City Council, 2 years ago, there were about 8 families a month becoming homeless in this way. Last year, it rose to about 16 families a month. And this year, the first 4 months, it's 32 families a month. That's 1 a day. Entering into the circumstances that we're talking about, that's 340 children in this year.
But when we
so
hear
far.
we hear Margaret's and Tamara's, as you say, eloquent testament to what's happening. 3 children under 7 in a room with
I think
shared.
I mean, there's long explanations to it, and I don't mean it'll take me a long time to say it, but there's a historical explanation, and it's about our attitude to social housing and stopping building social housing.
Well, what about fixing it? That's what we need to know.
I think, first of all, to recognise that during the boom period that David was talking about, where we were building all those houses, we built fewer and fewer social houses. And social houses aren't just for the extremely poor or people that have got social problems. They're for people on relatively low incomes who can't afford to buy houses on the open market, and Ireland has an amazing record since the foundation of the state of doing that, but we stopped doing it in the last 10 years. And so people who are hardworking, like Tamara's husband, Tamara's family, and so on, are finding themselves, no matter how hard they work, they can't get into the market. So what are the solutions? I mean, if we start building, we start the sort of things that David's talking about effectively, it will take a couple of years for those houses to become available.
Yeah.
And that's probably what Enda Kenny is referring to.
Okay, well,
so we need more immediate solutions to that. And for many people, the solution that they need is a significant increase in rent supplements so that they can afford to pay the rent that the landlords are looking for.
Okay. Sorry for we're running out of time, and I want to give David McWilliams the last word on this. You can reflect on that.
Tamara's and Margaret's situation straight away. You mentioned Sean O'Casey.
Yeah.
Michael Davitt had the Land League here 150 odd years ago. And one of the Land League's tenets was fixity of tenure. Yeah. So people could rent and stay renting, and they had rights.
Yeah.
And the rights were that they couldn't be kicked out, like Tamara or Margaret, once you sign a lease. And we have got to figure out what sort of society do we want here? Okay, what do we want? We've had a crash. Have we learned anything? What sort of society do we want? Yeah. One of those things is to protect people who are renting. Because if you don't protect people who are renting, every time prices rise, which we started with,
there's a fear.
Landlords will say, oh my God, prices rise. I'm going to sell the house that Margaret was in. Okay, or I'm going to look for a higher rent that Tamara's in. Yeah. Unless Margaret and Tamara have rights, legal rights, enshrined, that they, once they pay rent, they stay for 4, 5 years. We are going to be in a situation where the house price increases, which pose dilemmas for other people, different dilemmas, have victims, real victims, and those victims are...
Thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you, Margaret, Tamara, thank you, Ricky, Annette, Mike. Thanks so much for coming in. David McWilliams. All right, plenty of food for thought there. We'll take some